Welcome to Second Saturday Conversation. Here we explore Christianity in the 21st century and for the 21st century. Christianity in the 21st century, there are many understandings and interpretations of what Christianity is. And what does Christianity mean to you? And whether you're a Christian or not, what really matters? And as for Christianity for the 21st century, it's yet to be determined. The title for our gathering today is, In This Desert of Landscape We Find Ourselves In, a Match Struck in Darkness. As I wrote in my invitation to you today, the title is a borrowing from Welsh poet and Anglican priest R.S. Thomas. His birth and death dates are 1913 to 2000. He writes, "This desert of landscape we find ourselves in," and he goes on in his poem, "with the signpost with the word God worn away." He speaks of a profound sense of isolation that we feel, a lack of communication, vast interpretations, all that can make us feel disconnected. Okay, he died in 2000. And I paired that phrase from R.S. Thomas with Virginia Woolf's, a sentence or two from her novel, To the Lighthouse. She writes, "What is the meaning of life?" That was all a simple question. The great revelation perhaps never did come. Instead, there were daily miracles, illuminations, matches struck unexpectedly in the dark. Today, I want to focus on our language of faith, which I consider to be human language of experience and possibility. And what does it mean when our language of faith fails us? And also what human language is like when it ignites, like a match, a moment of light struck in the darkness. So today I'm sort of pondering the heart of our language of faith and to ask, what is the language of our faith? What does it mean to say, what is the heart of our language of faith? Does it come by way of the heart? And I will suggest today that our language of faith needs to come by the way of sympathy and empathy and feeling and imagination. So, Jeff, why don't you orient us a bit to our plenary time and how to raise hands and all of that stuff. So,
Good morning, Marianne. How are you?
I'm pretty good.
Good, good. I'm seeing all of these lovely messages from people all over the country and the world saying they're glad to be here. And I was just struck by the amazing community that has been woven together through these Second Saturdays. So Marianne's going to...
I'm amazed too, and I'm delighted. It gives me sort of a sense of assurance and hopefulness that, because we're kindred spirits here for the most part. I think we're kindred spirits. So it's nice to know that we're all around the place.
We are kindred spirits. So Marianne is going to be sharing some thoughts with us, and at the conclusion of that time, she will invite us into a plenary. And by way of helping to sort of keep that plenary organized and flowing, if you would like to speak, to add a contribution to what Marianne has shared, or you have a question that you'd like to ask her, if you will go down to the bottom menu bar and look for the React, it's a little heart at the bottom, And if you click on that, you'll see an option to raise your hand. And if you do that, that will let me know that you'd like to speak, and I will call on the people whose hands are raised, and you'll be invited to share what you wanted to share with Marianne. Because there are many of us here, it's really helpful if you can think out what you'd like to say before you raise your hand. I know I'm a person who thinks out loud, and so I can tend to wander a bit before I get to what I really want to say. But we'd like to encourage you to sort of short stop that before you raise your hand by composing what you'd like to say first, and try to keep it to 2 minutes. And I'll just keep time so that we know. And if you get to that 2-minute mark, I'll just put up a little finger like that to say, we hit 2 minutes and it's time to wrap it up, so that we can give other people a chance to share and interact. This plenary is a really, really rich time to hear from this community and to interact with Marianne and her ideas. And so we'd love to get as many voices as we can.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Jeff. Yes, and I look forward to plenary. It's your thoughts about my thoughts is really important to me. It's where I grow most. So let me get underway. In this desert of language we find ourselves in, what kind of language flickers or burns bright? The language of faith, I suggested, is human language of human experience and possibility. Okay, so faith here is not so much about belief, but one of the translations of the Greek word faith is actually trust. So I feel that the language of faith is kind of the language, it's existential. It's how do we talk about our existential existence? And today I want to raise up a vision of human possibility, and I draw from the Old Testament and New Testament, and from two American poets of democracy. So let me just mention the vision from the Old Testament and New Testament. I'm drawing from the Gospel of Luke, Luke 4:16. It's well known. According to Luke, this was Jesus' inaugural address. And it borrows from the Hebrew Bible, from the prophet Isaiah. And you might recall, many of you will recall, that it starts, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me to proclaim goodness to the poor, to proclaim freedom for prisoners and the captive, to proclaim recovery of sight for the blind, freedom for the oppressed." In short, and again, this is borrowing from Isaiah 61, we are called to bind up the brokenhearted. So writ large, and in particular, this is a suggested vision of what, as human beings, we are called to. And we alone as humans, we have the capacity to both weep and laugh at what the world is and can be. The world can be otherwise. There is another world, and it is this one. So this vision of in the Old Testament that is brought into the New Testament, that is actually the stuff of the kingdom of God, such a vision was a match lit in darkness, a light for the world, a flame that the speakers insisted could not be put out. And from our own American history and tradition, I'm going to read a poem by Emma Lazarus. It was written in 1883. Lazarus, incidentally, means God is my help, or God is help. So for instance, the character Lazarus in the New Testament, his name means God is my help, or God is help. Okay. Anyway, Emma Lazarus. She was a Jewish American poet, and she was a political activist. And let me give you a little background on the poem that I'm going to read of hers. The title of the poem is The New Colossus. Colossus, you might remember, was the Greek statue erected in the ancient city of Rhodes in 280 BC to celebrate Rhodes' victory over the Macedonian siege. Just reminding you of that. It stood about 100 feet tall, and it was a statue of the Greek male sun god Helios. And as I said, it was constructed in 280 BC. It was toppled by an earthquake in 226 BC. The New Colossus, which is the title of Emma Lazarus's poem, was constructed with the Roman goddess Libertates in mind. And she personified freedom. The actual name of the statue, by the way, is Liberty Enlightening the World. And she was to represent, she was a symbol of hospitality and freedom and hope and democracy. Her construction began in 1876. And this was to celebrate the centennial of American independence. And the statue was completed in 1886. She stands 305 feet high. And it's been said that she is struck by lightning over 600 times a year. And she still stands. So let me read to you Emma Lazarus's poem, The New Colossus. Again, this presents a vision of human possibility. Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land. Here, at our sea-washed sunset gates, shall stand a mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name, Mother of Exiles. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome. Her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame. Keep, ancient lands, your storied pomp, cries she with silent lips. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shore, send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed, to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. This poem is inscribed on a bronze plaque in the inner wall of the New Colossus, the Statue of Liberty. The vision of possibility in the Hebrew Bible and the New Testament and of America, I say, is the same. There is something deep in us, a deep sense or intuition about truth that is known in us, in the human body, that we know the soul needs and longs for and is capable of. We know what really matters. And what really matters, love, loss, suffering, longing to love and be loved, fears of loneliness and separation, And what matters also is our experience of awe and wonder and mystery. And we know these things, we sense them in our body. Some say that knowledge of truth is really only known in an embodied way. The truth is only known in our body. I don't know, what do you make of that? And that what is felt and experienced and known in our being, in our senses, that's what connects us. That's what connects us. It is what is felt and really experienced. But feelings are not considered very manly in this culture, even though the emblem of our nation is a mother of exiles. So the language of our faith, the language of human experience and possibility, is drenched in sympathy and empathy and feeling with. Language that reflects our identification one with another. So subjectivity matters. Particularity matters. In fact, I think that priests and pastors and poets, I think what draws us to the best of them is their willingness to come near to humanity, to our humanness. So I also think it's in our subjectivity where we make meaning. It's where we feel with, where we experience compassion, that's where we as human beings most intimately meet. The great American poet of democracy, Walt Whitman, writes this. He says, "I do not ask the wounded person how he feels. I become the wounded person." I mean, that's empathy and sympathy embodied, isn't it? He also writes, "What I assume, you assume." There's a double meaning there with the word assume, not only consent, but embody. "What I assume you shall consume, for every atom belonging to me as good belongs to you." In other words, we're inextricably connected, atom to atom. Or, as Walt Whitman might say, you are as wonderful as I. He also writes in sharp clarity and underscores consequence. Listen to this. He writes, "Whoever walks a furlong without sympathy walks to his own funeral, dressed in his shroud." We could say, whoever walks a furlong without empathy walks to his own funeral. But the word empathy hadn't been invented until the 20th century. Whoever walks without empathy is like a dead man walking, whose heart has ceased to function. Whitman wrote these poems called Leaves of Grass. When there was a struggle in America between North and South, between slave and free, and he insisted that union was possible without violence. He thought his poem, Song of Myself, and when he says I, he also means you. So Song of Myself is also Song of Yourself. He thought his poem might prevent the Civil the language of sympathy and empathy and the language of connection and intimacy and inclusion, the language of our faith, values the experience of every human being and in the particular. You know, Mary Oliver says we are all as common as field daisies and as particular, as singular. So it's identification with one another and our experience of that that binds us. That is the glue that connects us. And note that detachment and alienation, those are the enemies of participation. Detachment and alienation are the enemies of participation. Note to self. Let me also say curiously that in terms of our own human experience and our struggles, that it could be that our own disgust is also our hope. That it is out of our difficulties that we break out of the walls that enclose our existence. That it is our grief and mourning self that also informs our hope. So our own struggles are also doors or thresholds that can lead us to transformation. I suggest that. What do you think? So what I am suggesting today is that sympathy, empathy, sympathetic identification are really important in describing the language of our faith. And I also now want to draw on an additional category, an insight that I draw from Adam Smith, of all people. He wrote a book in 1759. I'll read him in a moment. He was an economist and philosopher, controversial. He actually, I think he was the one that did establish the foundation for free market economy. Anyway, he adds to sympathy and empathy the importance of imagination. He says it is with imagination that we enter into the being or experience of another person. I don't think he said this, but I came across this quote that it's an old quote. A man is only interested in anything when he identifies himself with it. Put differently, that anyone with imagination can become anything that interests them. So sympathetic imagination is also part of our identification with one another, and that is the only thing that connects us at a deep human feeling level. And imagination connects us not only with human beings, but with other things as well. I mean, I think about nature and our identification with nature or with a tree. You know, no wonder we want to hug them, you know, for those of us who have this sense that, yes, we're all inextricably connected one to another, even atom to atom, okay? And it's our imagination that helps to bring that awareness to form an image and language. So it's through the imagination that we create new things or new forms, even from things that are unknown. And it is suggested that imagination is the place where we create meaning. Now, what do you think of that? That imagination is where we create meaning. And that imagination also has the power to create a kind of coherence, a meaningfulness, order from disorder. And there's something in us that does seek coherence, that does seek order or pattern. And we have the power to produce it through imagination. So how do we handle love and loneliness and fear and suffering and wonder and our fears of separation? How do we handle our longings, our awareness of order and disorder through the language of our faith, which can also become the language of repair and healing because of our identification with one another? And without such language that includes repair and healing, the soul and the world are endangered. So listen to Adam Smith, okay, from his book, Theory of Moral Sentiments, which I have not read, written in 1759. But here's a quote from that book. Though our brothers is a, we'll cut him some slack, use of the male pronoun here, but through our brothers is, though our brothers is upon the rack, as long as we ourselves are at ease, our senses will never inform us of what he suffers. They never did and never can carry us beyond our own person. And it is by the imagination, sympathy, empathy. It is by the imagination only that we can form any conception of what are his sensations. By the imagination, writes Adam Smith, we place ourselves in his situation. We conceive ourselves enduring all the same torment. We enter, as it were, into his body and become in some measure the same person with him. By the imagination, we enter, as it were, into his body. We become in some measure the same person with him. I think that is what Walt Whitman was getting at as well. Now, let me move into our situation today. I want to use the word overculture. It's a word of Sarah Hutchinson's that names the governing dominant value of an age. Okay. Our overculture is still dominated by a white culture that thinks it's superior. White supremacy is the overculture of our time, or it's trying to be. It lacks imagination. It lacks empathy and sympathy. It considers the other the other. It is intent on dulling our senses to suffering, our own as well as others. And as Adam Smith says, though our brothers are upon the rack, as long as we are at ease, our senses will never inform us of what he suffers. This is the strategy of our overculture right now. And let me use the dissolution of USAID, the U.S. Agency for International Development, as parabolic of our current administration. It kind of tells the story of the ethos of this current administration. USAID is less than 1% of our national budget. I think it's 30 billion, maybe $40 billion. It has fed and healed and set free and made life livable and possible for millions of people all over the world. And it has America's name on it. It says, from America, from the American people, telling the world, we are sympathetic, we are empathetic, we are with you in your suffering. We want to help to make it better. We want to help to heal and renew. And the current administration is destroying it. So much for give me you're tired and you're poor. Pay attention to this lack of empathy and sympathy, this lack of identification and feeling. Pay attention to how so much of the quote unquote policies ignore the particular, the singular, the individual human, and in that disregard humanity altogether. Those who walk even a furlong without sympathy are the walking dead. Their only destination is their own funeral. By the way, I think, hold on a minute. Martin Luther King writes, "Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about the things that matter." So we must ask ourselves, what matters? We must be clear about this. You matter, I matter, we all matter. And I return now to Walt Whitman. He says, "Now I wash the gum from your eyes. You must habit yourself to the dazzle of the light and of every moment of your life. Long have you timidly waited, holding a plank by the shore. Now I will you to be a bold swimmer, to jump off in the midst of the sea and rise again. Now I wash the gum from your eyes. Wake up. Wake up to the dazzle of the light and of every moment of your life. Long have you timidly waded, holding a plank before the shore, by the shore, but now I will you to be a bold swimmer." Walt Whitman, as I hope that his words in his poem could prevent civil war. He believed that we could have union without violence because of our deep identification one with another. Mary Ann Buddy, the Episcopal Bishop of Washington, D.C., our national capital, she says the same. And I want to read from her sermon given at the National Cathedral on January 21st. I read only in part. "As a country, we have gathered this morning to pray for unity as a people and a nation, not for agreement, political or otherwise, but for the kind of unity that fosters community across diversity and division, a unity that serves the common good. Unity is a way of being with one another. It encompasses and respects our differences, teaches us to hold multiple perspectives and life experiences as valid and worthy of respect. A unity can enable us in our communities and in the halls of power to genuinely care for one another, even when we disagree. Alexander Solzhenitsyn once astutely observed that the line separating good and evil passes not through states not between classes, nor between political parties, but right through every human heart, through all human hearts. And the more we realize this, the more room we have within ourselves for humility and openness to one another across our differences, because in fact, we are more like one another than we realize. And we need each other. I ask you to have mercy, Mr. President, on those in our communities who fear. Help those who are fleeing war zones and persecution in their own lands to find compassion and welcome here. Our God teaches us that we are to be merciful to the stranger, for we were all once strangers in this land. May God grant us the strength and courage to honor the dignity of every human being, to speak the truth to one another in love, and walk humbly with each other and our God for the good of all people in this nation and the world. In this desert we find ourselves in, a match struck in darkness, a lamp lit, a flame that will not be extinguished because we will not let it. I am interested to hear from you what you make of my suggestions about sympathy, empathy, imagination as elements of our language of faith that connects us one to another and that is essential for our human soul and our human life together and our life in this world. And what other thoughts you have in this time and that you'd like to share with this community. So Jeff, we have plenty of time for a conversation. And I'll need about a good 7 minutes for closing, because I want to say a little bit about our upcoming guest next month. So I'm going to make sure I have that time before 11 o'clock. So Jeff, would you help us out with our plenary time?
Sure. I'm seeing lots of hands going up, Marianne. So I think
Good. I'd love to hear from people.
there's people who want to speak.
Good.
And just a quick reminder, I'll call on people as they raise their hands, and you'll have 2 minutes to share what it is you'd like to share or to ask the question you'd like to ask and interact with Marianne. And then we'll allow other people's voices to be heard. So.
And Jeff, be sure to make a copy of the chat for me, since I don't see the chat. And
I will. And as a matter of fact, there were people who were referring to that and wondered if you were getting the chat. And I let them know that I
not
always
yet.
Chat for you.
Yes, I would love to see the chat. So and that means that I won't see it until after this session, but Jeff, make sure that I get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, there's still hope in the world. There's this orange ball that's still holding up. Isn't that right, little boy? Yes, we
It
hope.
hasn't been shredded yet.
Not, it's getting close. But it's holding together.
I think it's
In
good.
fact, let me show it to you. It is shredding. It is.
Oh
It's
yeah, it is.
shredding. It is. But I also want to say it's still holding together. Here we go.
And Marianne, it is good for people to know that you always do read the chat, and that and the our time together in the plenary really does inform the future second Saturdays.
Mhm.
So this is an important time. Kate Gibbs, your hand went up right away, so I know you have something you'd like to share.
Kate, our good friend in Canada,
Yeah.
our potential 51st state. We'd love to have you.
Kate, can you unmute?
Oh dear. Are you there?
Yeah, you're still not unmuted yet, Kate. There we go. There we go.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Hello.
Hello, Kate. Nice to see you. You're a
It's
day
good.
brightener. Thank you.
Good. Well, no matter what's happening with the states and Canada, I I still hope I can be one of your favorite Canadians.
Oh, well, yes, indeed, you are. You are definitely my favorite Canadian.
Anyway, I love the um your talk today. I sounded like you were talking about love a lot is the overall theme, and sometimes when you were talking about imagination, I I love to imagine when people tell me about their children or their spouse or their dog or their grandchild or whatever personal relationship they have. They tell me, how much they love this person or animal, and all of a sudden it's like poof, my brain sort of explodes with this imaginary story that I've created in in my head, and it's probably not 100% accurate, but it's because I know it's not 100% accurate, but it's because I feed off when I'm hearing about how much this person loves this husband or child or animal,
Right.
and
Yeah, I mean, I love what you're saying, that I mean, your emphasis on love, okay, because that's really, you're right. That's what I'm getting at here. But that we know that, even those of us who maybe feel like we didn't get unconditional love growing up, but there is something deep in us that knows something about love. And so when you see that in another or hear it, I love it when you said your imagination kind of explodes because you can imagine sort of what they're talking about. And it connects you. So I'm sure that you have a feeling for my dog because you know how I feel about him. So we share that too.
I know,
Yeah.
but like yes, that's one of the things I've imagined, but sometimes it's like with marriage and family, you got to come back down to reality. You can. I watch a lot of Walt Disney, and real life isn't like Walt Disney, but I think that way.
Huh.
And as far as the Lady Liberty goes, when
Right, Lady Liberty, is that what you
yeah,
said? Yeah, Lady Liberty, that's what we call her.
um, you know, I haven't read the Bible for long, but it seems to me that the whole chunk of Exodus is about refugees, or what might be called illegal immigrants. The whole book of Exodus could be about that.
Yeah.
And I especially what Lady Liberty said about give us your poor, your starving, or so she's basically saying give us people from Syria and give us people from Gaza and give us all those people and we can
Yeah.
help
Yeah.
them.
I
That's
mean, in Emma Lazarus's poem, she calls this great statue the mother of exiles, the mother of
Yeah.
exiles. So, yeah, I so appreciate what you're saying, Kate, and how you resonate with what I'm trying to talk about. I get the sense, and this helps me, I get the sense that you kind of know what I'm trying to talk about.
I try.
Yeah, me too. But I feel like that you're with me, and you've put it really well in terms of the immediate ways that we feel for one another.
When you have some sort of disability, you're bound to get a little extra help and therefore attention. And there are all sorts of reasons why people might not like that. They want to be treated as a grown up. They don't want to be babied. But I've kind of let go of that because
Yeah,
because it is about love. And if
yeah, that's right.
I mean, I've taken advantage of all the pampering I can get because I know it comes from a good place
Right.
and pleasant, feels
Yeah.
nice. But yes, when there's
Yeah.
love involved, you're always doing the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And in your own vulnerabilities, the strength of that is that you need to receive that love and help. So that very vulnerability is actually your strength, that you receive love. That makes, and you give it, but being able to receive it also makes so much difference. So, okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. I know we've got a bunch of hands up, so we'll probably move to some of them, but thank you so much for what you've shared and how you've shared it. Yeah. Thank you, Kate. Wow. You're muted, hon.
I wasn't able to unmute there. I just was able to there. Thanks. That was just lovely to hear.
Yeah. Yeah. Kate is
From Kate. She's such a important part of this community.
Yeah, I agree.
So I'd just like to make a little suggestion to those of you who are raising your hands. Would you please make sure that the name on your video is the name you would like to be called? I'm seeing some names that aren't actually people's names, and it's difficult to know who to call on. So if you can go to the little 3 dots in the upper right-hand corner of your video screen and click on that, you'll see a chance to rename yourself. So if you could name yourself as who you'd like to be called on, that would be helpful. Beryl Rayner, Beryl, do you want to unmute yourself?
Thank you, Marianne. That was so encouraging. And I was so impressed by the bishop's address.
Yes.
And there's a Quaker saying about, the teachings of our faith being for our comfort and discomfort. And it was obvious that in that context, there was considerable discomfort, even though an apology was demanded afterwards. And the response was from the bishop, I will pray for him. And our hearts go out to you in America, because, yes, the battle is enjoined in so many ways. I think for me, ever since in my teens, the horrors of the Holocaust became conscious, and we were made so aware of the suffering and the inhumanity that one of the problems in that early part of my life was overwhelmment. And that sense now that sense in a way of threats to our safety throughout the world, and the latest actions against the aid agencies and all the suffering that's going to ensue as a result. And I think as a Quaker, I'm very aware, and also an Anglican, a Quanglican really, of on the one hand, the need to speak truth to power.
Right.
And on the other hand, to strengthen ourselves inwardly by the guidance of that of God within us, to be enabled to do what we are prompted to do, and to protect, if you like, our own mental processes from being invaded by all that's going on. And that inner strengthening, I think, when outer man perishes, our inner man is renewed, as it were. That inner strengthening calls us to reflect and to call on those qualities of empathy and compassion and imagination, but at the same time to place our hope even more deeply in the love of God at work in the universe, all the good that goes on under the radar, and that deeper magic that C.S. Lewis talked of in his Narnia books. I remember a quote, I can't remember where it's from: teach us to care and not to care. Teach us to sit still, and that needs to center ourselves in the love and forgiveness and compassion that we find deep within all of us.
Yeah. Errol, thank you. Thank you. Deep wisdom and care from what you've said.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Robin Russell, do you want to unmute yourself?
Here we go. Hi, I really resonated with the Martin Luther King quote that you had about remaining silent. And I'm seeing us at such a crucial crossroads and a need to be more than just talking about this among ourselves. I look at the faces on the screen, and so many of us are the same generation, baby boomers who kind of began to wake up to what was going on in terms of power and poverty and unfairness in this country during the Vietnam War era. And many of us felt called to take action then. And a lot of it was through the church. I mean, I know the first demonstrations I went to were through the Episcopal Peace Fellowship, and got very involved in activism through that. Are there any groups doing that now? And I just really think that we're at a tipping point and it's time to start taking action. And some of us boomers
Hmm.
need to get back on the street.
Because it makes a difference. It makes a difference.
Sure hope so.
Mhm.
Yes.
And that's nonviolent embodied resistance, right?
Yes.
It's making a statement. No. So I agree with you, and I think it makes a difference. And I think it's already, some are saying that some of the, demonstrations, the people showing up in various settings across the country right now, that it makes a difference. It influences.
We need to get out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, the word soft power is being, talked about as though it's not as effectual. I'm all for soft power. As you know, I'm a weak theology person. So these categories don't throw me too much. In fact, they're subversive qualities, I think. But I'm thank you for Robin for calling to us who are in the same cohort, and this is a slightly different calamity now, but it's different because of but the concerns are very, very much like, the concerns about humanity and freedom and all of that we experienced in the civil rights movement and during the Vietnam War.
Have you heard of any groups taking action through the churches?
Well, let's hear from I actually don't, but that's, and I hate to say it, but I'm not as plugged into the organizations of the institutional church as I used to be. So
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry about that. But so if there are others, either they'll put it in the chat or, speak up and let Beryl and others of us know. Because I remember Episcopal Peace Fellowship. I remember all of that. So, but yes, this is an important time.
Thank you, Robin.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I just called you Beryl. I meant Robin. Yeah.
Marianne, I just want to read this interesting thing that just came in from the chat from Beth and John Davidson. They say, friends, in a nutshell, this is from a high-level staff member of a senator's office.
Okay.
Best thing you can do to be heard and get your congressperson to pay attention is to have face-to-face time. If they have town halls, go to them. Go to their local offices. If you're in DC, try to find a way to go to an event of theirs. Go to the mobile offices that their staff hold periodically. All these times are located on each congressperson's website. When you go, ask questions, a lot of them, and push for answers. The louder and more vocal and present you can be at those, the better. And then number 2, but those in-person events don't happen every day. So the absolute most important thing that people should be doing every day is calling. You should make 6 calls a day, 3 of your DC offices and 3 local. It's a practical thing I don't think we think of that as necessarily doing anything, but clearly from somebody who hears these things and sees their impact, I think that's an important reminder.
And I'm struck by the face-to-face. That's an embodied encounter.
Yes.
It's embodied. It's like, then it matters, and a friend of mine sent me something that said, make 5 calls a day. And it was very similar to what Beth and John are talking about making calls. But I will take a look at that too in the chat, and others make a note of that. So yes, this is not a time to sit by and wait for others. It's like, as Walt Whitman said, I will you to be a bold swimmer.
Yes. 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 Mary Ellen, do you want to unmute?
Yes, there I am from Du Bois.
Oh, yes, Mary Ellen. Hello. Nice to see
Hi, Marianne. Hi.
Hi. Yeah, greetings to Du Bois.
Thank you. We're snowy, but doing fine.
Yeah, we've got a little snow here too in Bend.
Yeah. I wanted to I got so much into what you talked about humans having a deep sense of what the soul needs and a deep sense of what truth is. And I felt like so many people have had that tamped down by the rhetoric and the false claims and untruths.
Mhm.
But in the reddest state of Wyoming, reddest state, it's been interesting to see the effects of things happening. I've had calls from, I guess I'd call them some unchurched people in town about the bishop's sermon,
Marianne Buddies, yeah,
talking to truth with pure gospel. That's
right.
all it was pure gospel.
Pure gospel.
They've said, what is the church doing that I can help with?
Hmm.
Some of these issues, and so we just have conversations.
Right.
And they are people probably who are not in the red side, but they've been silent.
Mhm.
And so, but the main thing is our legislation also in Wyoming has been taken over by a freedom.
Mm.
And now there are bills going through that people are really protesting.
Mm.
And in fact, today someone was asking about organized protests. I heard on NPR this morning that a whole group was in Cheyenne in front of the legislature building protesting. And it just happened by people coming together on the internet, I guess, is what they said. There's no organization to it, but they're there. But my thing was the extreme things that have been done, I think have touched those who felt they were believing in all of this, has touched them with what is wrong with it,
Mhm.
has made them uncomfortable.
Mhm.
And I think it's time to not just talk to legislators, but to talk to those in your community that believed this was going to make America great again. And I have found so much opening with that. You know, I had a man that really believed in the immigration problem, but who said to me, but I don't want them to take good people. I don't want them to deport people that are doing good. If I want them to take criminals away, but you know, and there's just a lot of chance for us to talk with our neighbors.
I agree.
And I think having been an election judge now since 2020, I want to see what'll happen at the midterm to help us.
Yeah.
And thank you. I love being a second Saturday
Mm.
community person. And I'm seeing you in Du Bois when you come to Ring Lake. We'll see you this summer.
Yeah, see you this summer. Good, Mary Ellen. I'll look forward to that.
Bye.
Yeah. And thanks so much for your comment that, because I'm banking on this, that there is something deep in our own humanity
Yes.
that knows, the body knows, they say. And that on a deep level, we know what we need
Mm-hmm.
with each other and for each other. And yet, the overculture, which I think is a really interesting term, will will make us think otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I'm counting on us to say, wait a minute, this is not right.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm counting on us to C.S. Lewis, I probably shouldn't quote this, but C.S. Lewis has this quote in Screw Tape Letters. I'm not a big Lewis fan. I'm a later Lewis fan, if I'm a fan at all. But C.S. Lewis in Screw Tape Letters says, forgive me for this, the devil always overplays his hand.
Yep.
And so I'm kind of thinking that things are getting overplayed.
Yes.
And I think that we will not tolerate it ultimately.
And I do see people sitting back saying he'll hang himself, or this overcultural will, but we can't sit back.
Yeah. And this is where my sort of provocative comment about our disgust is also our hope.
That's right.
You know, It's like, no, this will not do. And I love what you're saying, Mary Ellen, for now let's talk to one another, human to human, people to people, about, oh my gosh, what's really going on here?
Yeah.
So who is suffering, you know?
Yep.
So anyway, thank you. I'm so glad you're there. I'm so glad you're part of Second Saturday.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mary
I'll look forward to seeing you this summer.
Ann.
Me too.
Lynn Tolk. Lynn, do you want to unmute?
Yeah. Okay. First of all, thank you. I really needed this.
Thank you, Lynn.
And as I happen to be an Enneagram 9, I have spent a lot of my life withdrawn and silent and not saying a whole lot. I've written a lot that I haven't published, and I'm working on a book that I hope to publish this time. And one of the things that I am making a conscious effort to do is to be open when I encounter strangers and to say, I love you when I encounter members of my family, my children, my grandkids who were over last night. And it was such a pleasure to be able to do that. One of the, oh shoot. The problem with coming up with a script in advance is that then I forget what it was. But something that was said earlier that really hit home was this whole business about good and evil, which I have kind of struggled with throughout my life. How do you encompass everything? How do you believe that God is a unifying force for everything? So that has been coming up lately. And one of the people I have studied with recently is a trauma specialist, Thomas Hubel. And one of the things that he stresses a lot in his advice to people who want to do healing work is to reach that point where I feel you feeling me. And that's not an easy thing, but I think it's really important. The other thing he said when someone asked him recently how he would define evil, and he said, well, his definition of evil is the complete and total absence of any and all movement, which to me is death, dead, not death, physical death, but just deadness. So I kind of wanted to throw that out too.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for this.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Yeah, because you might imagine that I thought, what do I give voice to today? Concerning trauma, I just want to mention Gabor Mate. He also does a whole lot of trauma work. And he had an interesting comment. He said, rather than saying to somebody, what's the matter with you? Say, what happened to you?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So again, that's different. So I just wanted to make that popped into my mind and you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I wouldn't worry too much right now about evil, evil and good. I would just, like Kate said, let's just love one another.
Yeah. That's my, open, more and more openness and more expressing it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, hospitality is a risk.
Yeah.
And so is love.
Yes. It's scary.
So is love. But let's risk it.
Amen.
Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you, Lynn. Sheila Richards. Sheila.
Hi, Sheila.
Oh,
there you are.
There you go.
Hello. Let's see what in the world this is. Okay, that's in the way. Mary Ann, I sent you a picture and I doubt I don't know if it came, and I don't know, but I hope people can see this much.
It did. And this is perfect. So, and do read it and then show it to us again. Read the comment and hold it up to the screen again, Sheila.
This is from Story People, which you can Google. This is a poster, and I used to have it on note cards, and I ran out of them. So I ordered this poster, and that picture that you saw is a real whimsical character. All these characters are quite whimsical, and it's an angel. In my dream, the angel shrugged.
and said, "If we fail this time, it will be a failure of imagination." And then she placed the world gently in the palm of my hand.
Perfect.
Mm.
Can you see her?
Yes.
Yes.
I can't see what I'm doing. Yes.
No,
Yes.
you're doing perfectly. That's perfect.
Isn't it wonderful? If
It's
we
perfect.
fail now, it will
Yes.
be a failure of imagination.
Yes.
And
I love it.
I also would just want to share that my mantra this year, I choose one every year. It's supposed to be one word, but I get carried away. I sign almost everything. Hang in there, hold on to one another,
Nice.
which is what we need to do to get through this chaos.
Mm.
Thank you so much for today and imagination.
Yes. Well, thank you, Sheila. And I love what you're saying, you know, hang in there and hold on to one another. Because I feel like our gatherings on Second Saturday are like that. It's like,
Yeah.
hold on one another and hold on to one another. So
It's amazing that here we are, thousands of miles apart from one another. Yet when I turn this on Saturday, I feel a connection that brings me comfort because I know this is a safe space for us, and we are all concerned.
Mm. Yes. Thank
Yeah.
you so much, Sheila.
Yeah. Thank you, Sheila.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's a safe space too. And it is interesting. Sheila, you just used the word feel. I just use the word feel, even though this is Zoom, right? And as you said, we're thousands of miles away. Second Saturday has a feel to me. I can kind of feel Second Saturday. Anyway.
Yes. Patrick Byrne. Patrick,
Hello,
hi.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks for being there. I feel a connection with our
Thank you.
community every time we gather. This morning, I was thinking about another issue with regard to connecting, failure, being unable to connect with people. And it's our inability to connect with our own suffering.
Ah.
And I remember I was on
Ah.
a course on how to be a chaplain once, and a person who was dying asked me to give $10, actually it may have been $20 to somebody who was begging on the street. And when I gave them the $20, I felt this anger inside. And in reflecting with the group of other chaplains and our supervisor, I came to understand that I had difficulty accepting the fact that I was a beggar at that time in my life.
Mm.
And I hated having to be a beggar.
Oh my.
Mm.
And this person confronted me with the very thing I was struggling to embrace. And as I did that, there was a major kind of release within me and an ability to connect with other people in a way I hadn't before. I always saw them as other. Now I began to see that I was connecting different parts of myself as I connected with other people. So it's an amazing experience of community and healing within myself. And I just wanted to share that because that's, for me, perhaps one of the biggest struggles we have in our society is to see the truth about our own suffering, our own loneliness, our own whatever.
Yeah.
So instead of being just blocked from ourselves, it is the thing that blocks us from connecting with others.
Mm.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Patrick, I just think that's so profound. And if I may, diagnostic about our current president.
I'm a Canadian, by the way.
So well, I'm an American and I just said it, but
We feel threatened up here.
I
It's a kind of an imperial outreach, control, maneuver.
Yeah, I know, I agree.
Yeah.
And what I am picking up with what you're saying about being in touch with our own suffering.
Yes.
And that if we can't be in touch with our own suffering or loss or grief, and we see it in another, we hate it.
Exactly.
So,
There's a,
I mean,
it's visceral.
That's a perfect word for it. It's visceral.
Yes.
So, far be it from me to, diagnose anybody, and to say nothing of Trump, but I just think that he's such a broken human being. It doesn't excuse anything, but I'm just really struck by the truth of what you have experienced in yourself, that you couldn't accept your own suffering. And then when you were able to, strangely enough, that became the open door, the way to be with others and
that happened within a community context. That couldn't happen with me praying my little prayers alone in a closet. It happened in a community context.
And that's really
of a loving community.
That's really important.
Mm-hmm. So I'm so grateful for this community. I'm there every month. And thank you.
Well, thanks for bringing that healing spirit and wisdom and understanding to us.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay, thanks.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick.
Yeah.
Cheryl McInnes.
Hey there. This is perfect about language. I have a history. My husband was an FBI agent, and I've contacted ones that are more recently retired to see what it is. And the word that they kept using was speechless. And so this whole thing on language is really important, because so many of us are speechless. And that's the beginning. When it's all ripped away, you've got to find new ways of saying it. So this is perfect. Okay.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Cheryl, yeah. And Cheryl, thank you for your comments in the chat. I think you made some brilliant comments about physics and atoms last month. So and I love that stuff. So, but I want to say again what you said about don't let ourselves be speechless. As hard as this is to talk about, but so I really appreciate what you're saying.
That's great.
And let the word become flesh.
Yeah.
Stand up, show up.
Yes.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Jim High. I think we have time for one more, Marianne. Jim?
Okay.
Hello, Marianne.
Hello, Jim High.
I thought in light of your Christianity in and for the 21st century, I would make a book recommendation for everybody today.
Excellent.
And I wanted to talk about the fact that everybody has seen those red letter editions of the Bible where Jesus' words are all in red. And that was published in 1901 by the Christian Herald. And it quickly became, they used the King James Version, of course, and that quickly became a real thing. And then in 1985, a man named Robert Funk formed the Jesus Seminar, and he called together all the theologians that would come and join him. Eventually came up to be about 200 people. I think Marcus was one of them.
Was.
And they decided the first thing they would do is they would check on that red letter Bible. And so they also decided they would add the Gospel of Thomas, and the Gospel of Thomas is not in the Bible, but it's available, and it is 114 sayings of Jesus just listed in one after the other. They don't know who put it together or whatever, but since that was all sayings of Jesus, they included the Gospel of Thomas, and they published a book after years of study. Now, this is 200 religious scholars studying. They published a book that's called The Five Gospels. And so They put that out in 1993. And the Jesus Seminar has sort of morphed into the Westar Institute now. But what they did is they printed the Bible using red for the letters that they said Jesus definitely said that. They used pink that Jesus probably said something like this. They used the gray letters, but Jesus probably did not say this. And they used black letters, but Jesus definitely did not say this. And it's likely added by a later tradition. And I have that book, and it's very helpful to read it in with that light on it, because you get the real message of Jesus, just the red letters. And we need the message of Jesus today more than ever.
Yeah.
And that's my suggestion and book recommendation.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Yeah, the Five Gospels, edited by Robert Funk. And part of what that book illustrates for us is that there are layers of the tradition early on, and that
Yes.
some things that have been attributed to Jesus were actually the voice of the community. Like in John, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Well, that gets black, not red, which is a scandal to some people. But what that informs is that the community experienced him as the way, the truth, and the life. And so they put that in the speech bubble rather than Jesus proclaiming that he was that. The fact that it was in black suggests that that's the voice of the community. So it's a very interesting way of hearing our gospel stories in multivalent ways, and how much is the voice of the community and how much might go back to Jesus and so forth. And so it's very instructive, and it moves us away from a literalistic reading of scripture as well.
It certainly does.
It's very, very helpful. And Jim, as an aside, I kind of wonder what these scholars, I'm not a scholar, what we would come up with now, because I'm sure that there's some revisions in what came out red, pink, gray, and black. So I think that there'd probably be more revisions today than there were in 1993. But what that said, so I definitely need to move to my closing. But Jim, I want to put you on the spot though for just a second. What did you make of my comment that feelings are not manly in this culture?
Well, I agreed with that. Agreed with that.
Yes, it's
agreed with everything
I'd like to hear from you.
I'm not disagreeing with anything you said.
Oh, God bless you. Where have you been all my life, Jim? Oh dear.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I want to make a few announcements, and I know that there are others who are in the queue. So we will have coffee time. We'll have about another 20, maybe 25 minutes at coffee time. So for those of you who can stay, we'll continue this conversation then. Okay, and thank you for being here. A couple of announcements. February 15th, so that's next Saturday, we're going to have a third Saturday reflection. We have about 3 of these a year, and it's an opportunity for small group conversation. Okay, so we meet from also 9:30 to 11 Pacific time, and it's an opportunity for people to be in small groups. You'll be assigned randomly in groups of probably about 5. So you can be in a group most likely with people who are from elsewhere. And I will provide a prompt. I don't know quite what it's going to be yet, but again, this will be an opportunity for us to be together and to maybe build confidence together that we are here and that we share a common heart and interest in humanity and compassion. Okay, so for those of you who are fine with small groups, it's not everybody's cup of tea. We have guidelines for the small group conversation. They're pretty strict, but it's a wonderful opportunity for people to get together and share, and for you to get a little more window into some of the people participating in Second Saturday. So next Saturday, February 15th from 9:30 to 11 Pacific, I'll be sending out an invitation probably Monday. March 8th, which is our next Second Saturday, is we're having a guest, and Jim High, make a note. It's Robin Myers. Robin Myers is also part of Westar, the Westar Institute, which is the home of the Jesus Seminar. And I'm really delighted to have Robin with us. He is direct and he's a pastor. He's also a bit of a modern day prophet. The title for his talk is Excuse Me, Interrupting on Behalf of Justice. Okay, and I'm going to read for you the description he sent me of what he is going to be exploring next second Saturday on March 8th. Okay, Robin Myers. One of the principal roles of prophetic rhetoric is to interrupt on behalf of the unconditionality of justice. There are times when we can wait out what is happening around us, and times when, because we are running out of time, we must interrupt. This speaks to what some of us were talking about today. Jesus was a cosmic interruption, writes Robin Myers. Prophets interrupt with their impatient urgency. Ordinary people can also interrupt with their bodies as well as with their words by refusing to be in compliance with what the Bible calls the principalities and powers. We are living in a moment when the good, the true, and the just are being disassembled right before our eyes. Can I get an excuse me? So I look forward to Robin being with us and continuing actually quite a bit of the conversation we've had today. And by the way, Marcus, I'll say more about this next time, but Marcus was very fond and admiring of Robin Myers. And before Marcus died, said, keep your eye on Robin Myers. He's an important voice. Also, I want to draw attention to our second Saturday conversation that we will have in April 12th, because we're going to have another guest. And one of our members here, Carolyn, I think you were the one that put something in the chat the last time. I'm really delighted to be able to say that our guest on April 12th, which is the Saturday before Palm Sunday, will be Mark Oakley, who's the Dean of Southwick Cathedral. Mark Oakley is a remarkable human being. He's written many books, but one of them, which was my first introduction to him, is called A Splash of Words, Believing in Poetry. And that's got a nice double entendre, not only believing in poetry, but believing in poetry, okay? Anyway, he's fabulous. And one of the things he says is that God is not the object of our knowledge, but the cause of our wonder. So that will be April 12th. Mark Oakley, the Dean of Southwick Cathedral in the UK. So, closing music. The song that I chose for our closing music today is from a musical by Irving Berlin, written in 1949, called Miss Liberty. And he sets to music some of the words from Emma Lazarus's poem, The New Colossus. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed, to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. Irving Berlin put that poem of Emma Lazarus's to music in his 1949 musical, Miss Liberty. And that's our closing music for today. So a torch lit in the darkness and still aflame. So lots to come. Right now we'll have coffee hour. In 5 minutes, we'll have coffee over. Third Saturday on February 15th, for those of you who can come, Robin Myers will be with us on March 8th, and the very Reverend Mark Oakley on April 12th. Thank you so much for being here. Do not lose heart. Do not be afraid. I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you for being here.